Hi, everyone. It's Cathy Alessandra, the Yes, I Can coach, and I'm excited that you are back for another episode of Yes, I Can Living. You know, in a time during the pandemic and all that we've been dealing with in 2020, we're all looking at our mental health. You know, I talk in Yes, I Can Living about it being life, love, health, wealth, and business. But health is also our mental health. And today I'm very excited to have a special guest with us that we're going to talk just about that subject. Dr. Menije Boduryan-Turner is a licensed psychologist practicing in Los Angeles. She received a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of California, San Diego, and furthered her education with a master's degree in psychology at Pepperdine University and a doctoral degree in clinical psychology from the California School of Professional Psychology in her therapy practice. In her therapy practice, Menije specifically uses cognitive behavioral therapy, also known as CBT, that looks at how our thoughts affect our emotions, which affect our behaviors. Therefore, one of the main focuses of CBT is to uncover the underlying thoughts, attitudes, and belief systems you may have that are unhealthy, negative, or rigid. So, Dr. Menije, thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited to have you here.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about business, and then we're going to go into the mental health side of things. So tell the audience a little bit about how and why you started your business.
Definitely. And it's been a journey. So I
Mm-hmm.
did not start as a business owner. So I currently have a private practice in Los Angeles, Woodland Hills specifically, for those that are familiar with LA area. And I did not start it with having my own private practice. I did the typical route of working for somebody else. And so once I graduated in 2012, I worked in drug and alcohol treatment centers. So I worked for a treatment center, and it was in 2017 when I had my daughter. She's my firstborn, my only child, and that's when I realized something had to change. And I think some drastic reasons like this often happens for people, where they get to a point in their lives where it doesn't fit them anymore. And that's where I found myself. Obviously, therapy is still what I'm so passionate about, but the way I was offering therapy wasn't working for me. I had my daughter, and I wanted flexibility, and I wanted to have a little bit more say in the type of therapy I was doing, because when you work for a treatment center or a corporation, you don't get to choose your clients, right? You don't get to choose who's the right fit for you. You kind of get assigned to people and you make it work. So I think you get to a point where you want to have a little bit more independence, autonomy, and something that just resonates with where I was in my life. And hindsight, though, I also realized part of that was a lot of challenge I took to raise my firstborn daughter and have my sleepless nights and have my mom guilt and have my mom confusion, like I'm not a good enough mom, look at every other mom, they're doing so good. And then raising this little baby called private practice, my own, now I'm a self-employed business owner and I have my own practice, and that's a baby of its own. So looking back, I do think it was a bit of a kind of that blind, courageous thing I did, start both of these together. But that's how it started for me, is after I had my daughter and I was like, I need something that fits my life more, and private practice was it.
Right. I love that. It's so we really need to look. I mean, many times I think in our lives, we look at our values and our priorities and where we're at, and things shift. Right. And while it started out one way, it was time, you had that realization it was time to go out as an entrepreneur, which is not an easy task.
No.
Certainly not with a newborn to boot. Right. I mean, yeah.
And I think one of the reasons this all happened this way, I have to admit another dilemma I dealt with, which is I got so comfortable. So before my daughter was born, I was, like I said, I graduated in 2012. She was born 2017. So for 5 years, I was in this, working in addiction field and treatment centers. And I am one of those guilty ones. My 3-year plan turned into a 5-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not get out, meaning pursue something different and do something else. And I know that fear isn't unique to me. I think we're very afraid. When you just said right now, which was so true, you gotta, life changes, you change, but you're afraid, right? You're afraid to change because there's the unknown. And I have to be honest, it was after my daughter was here that I finally had the okay, I have to change something. I have to find something different for me. So I know that there is a lot of fear of the unknown and the comfort of the comfort zone that
Right.
that did hold me back for a while. There's a reason why it all happened with my daughter.
Well, it's funny. There's that saying, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. I mean, to grow and to really thrive and to take that next step. None of us find it comfortable, right? I mean, and then it's interesting how sometimes we're presented an opportunity. Well, we don't see it as an opportunity, right? It's kind of like no other choice. And so we're not forced to make the decision, but in a way, yeah. I mean, because of your daughter and everything, it turned the tide and you made the choice at that time to make the change. So I love that. I love that. It's important, and you heard the call, you made the change. Um, so speaking of that, because entrepreneurship is not easy. It is not a straight line. It is, as we know, up, down, round and round. What has been your biggest challenge in running your business and how did you overcome it?
I think there's a lot of challenges, some that we already have commented on. Getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, I think, is a journey of its own. Breaking free from our fears is a journey of its own. But I think what really sums up the challenge I experienced is how little knowledge I had to know how to run a business and because as a therapist, you still have to figure out who do you want to serve and what kind of therapist are you. So I think a lot of it is, again, self-reflection and figuring myself out. Who do I want to show up as?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, cognitive behavioral therapy is a modality, but who do I want to show up as? Who do I want to be? So I think the challenge was like getting to know myself and getting to know how I wanted to show up, who I wanted to be, what was going to be my identity. And again, letting go of what I know and venturing out to something of the unknown, knowing that I was going to grow through this experience. I think that's the biggest obstacles, because on paper it may all look easy, but there is a lot of soul searching that you do, I think, when you become an entrepreneur and you build something from scratch, right? You are growing with this business and it's going to grow as much as you grow as a person, and it's going to be rich as much as challenge yourself and keep yourself accountable. And so I think the biggest obstacles was figuring who I wanted to be as a business owner and how I wanted to set those boundaries. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure this has come up in many of your episode conversations about money, right?
Yes, right.
Not to be scared to ask people, this is my session fee, and having those conversations, because I think there's also, as women, we not all of us are raised with that level of confidence and comfortability to talk about money, versus, I think, truth is, men are raised to be more comfortable with asking for raises, asking for what they deserve, asking for promotion,
Right.
negotiation skills, right?
Yep.
Versus women are taught to, you know oh, just find a compromise, just make it work,
Right.
find the middle ground, make it work. And then I think, as a business owner, one of the things I had to learn was, no, I don't have to make it work. I can just say what my truth is, and if that other person feels comfortable, there we go, there's our therapeutic relationship will start.
I do.
um,
It's a really a good point you mentioned, because I can't even tell you the number of clients I work with, and it's mostly women. I have a handful of men, but it is that the asking for the money. They don't want to raise their rates. They're afraid to ask for the money, and as as a therapist, right, it all goes back to what we think about ourselves and our own value and our worth, and how do we work through that,
yes.
right, and really dig into that so that we can. I mean, I had done a really interesting exercise at one point about, really looking at some of those things. And it was, I forget where I'd gotten that, but it was this whole idea. For example, I don't have a college degree. And so, it was like, I'm not worthy to make money because I don't have a college degree. So I'm not worthy. What's the first part? And the truth is, right, that's the second part of the sentence, and the truth is, no, actually, I'm a very successful entrepreneur with more drive than many who have a college degree, right? And facing that, figuring that out, right, so that you can get to the bottom of why you're afraid to charge, or owning your worth. Owning your worth is what it comes down to.
It really does. And I, what's coming up for me right now is the imposter syndrome. I
Yeah.
think as a business owner, the challenge, the obstacle we all face, no matter what business we are diving into, is, you know, in the imposter, I'm a fraud versus I have something valuable to give. I deserve to be here, or no, I'm not good enough. Who am I to charge that much, or who am I to write this book? Who am I to um, have this many clients? I'm sure there's better therapists out there, or and second guessing ourselves and self doubt. I think those are the personal things that tie back into the business factors like money and marketing and who do you serve. I think it all goes back to what do I think about myself, and I absolutely had to keep letting go of those self-doubt, or be at least mindful when they chiming into my ear and say, nope, you're not doing a good job. I'm like, no, I'm doing as the best I can. And
Right. Right.
and I think those are the biggest obstacles, because that's again the self-doubt and knowing that it's been done before. How is this any going to be any different? What do I have anything to contribute? Is what really stops us sometimes to get out of our comfort zone and pursue our dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about quarantine. We're recording this in September of 2020. Although I think it's going to air in October of 2020. And, it's been a long, long, long year. Let's have a candid conversation about that, just with people and their feelings, where things are at, entrepreneurs, in particular, and, what you see and what we might be able to do to continue, being healthy, happy human beings.
Yes, and we need that more than ever right now. We're looking for that sense of happiness, and we're looking for that sense of safety. And I think I want to start by recognizing how scary this year has been, because it's been so unpredictable. As a business owner, I know that a lot of people felt a lot of anxiety because what they thought was working is not working anymore. I sometimes find myself thinking like, we would have never thought that restaurants, movie theaters, malls will be closed. So you would think, oh, of course, I'll open a boutique shop on Ventura Boulevard. I'm sure I will get attraction. And then here you are, everything is, or there's nothing indoors happening. So I think how we thought we could run businesses are not as applicable as it used to be. And what a scary experience it is when a lot of things is so unknown, and it's unlike any other. So it's like we're not familiar with the situation, so we don't know how to problem solve. So I think there is increase. I mean, it just unbelievable amount of increase in anxiety and self-doubt and fear of failure, and fear of rejection, and fear of disappointing ourselves or people around us. And I just want to first validate that if those emotions come up, I think it's the most normal reaction to have. What we're going through is the fear, is the anxiety, is the unpredictability. And what I've also noticed is what you were just saying about how long it's been, that it doesn't get any easier.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I noticed. People are kind of not giving themselves, a break, because they think, well, it's been going on for 8 months. I should get used to it by now. And I'm like, no, it just because it's been going for a while, it doesn't get any easier. It's actually still quite messy. I think life in quarantine, running a business in quarantine is still very messy and hard. So I think it has to start with your inventory of like, how has it affected you? To start with noticing and identifying, and with it, I guess, take some responsibility of how has it affected you. I noticed like some people can be very overproductive. As you know, with anxiety comes need for control and need for perfectionism. So I think people have been overly productive, and some people are totally the opposite, where they freeze and they procrastinate. So they've been underproductive. So I think it is important to take a look at how you've been responding to the quarantine. How has your thoughts been in response to it? Do you, are you having more self-criticism? Are you having more comparison? You're comparing yourself to other people in your community or within your family members. And obviously checking in with your mood. Are you having more mood swings? Are you having more panic? Are you, how is your sleep and appetite? And I think you have to start with first gathering the information.
Mm-hmm.
And how you've been doing, how has it affected you, so that we can decide what you want to do with the rest of the year. And I'm sure that's something that you often also encourage people is we don't have to, we don't have to like let go of 2020 and let go of having some goals or some expectations for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so we might have to ask ourselves, I was kind of doing the math, and I think we have like about 100 more days left of
Yeah.
2020, give or take. And like, what do you want it to be for the rest of that? And some of the, like, one of my favorite questions to ask my client is like, what would make your life easier?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do the last 100 days of this year that would make your life a little less stressful, a little more, easier on you, and less anxious for you? And let's focus our energy on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If that means, so every Monday night we're having peanut butter and jelly for dinner, that's what you're having for peanut butter and jelly for dinner. If
Right.
that's what it means, that your life gets a little easier.
Right.
And so I think that's a few things to look at.
Okay. What about, I'm working with, talking with a lot, and you actually see it on social media too. There's a number of people I know that are just stuck. And I think, it may be the deer in the headlights. It may be the excuses not to move. But how is there something, is there something that you would suggest that we can, I love the idea of looking, being aware of how we're behaving. I know at the beginning of quarantine, I was super overproductive. And then in the middle, it was like, not so much. I'm like exhausted from the amount of work I was doing, right? And now it's like, I have found my new rhythm, my new rhythm. But what would you suggest for somebody who's feeling stuck? Like they just, I can't get the motivation up to do it, or, because life is going on.
It is. And first of all, I love how you walked us through and finding our rhythm. I think that's it's the ultimate goal. It's like finding what works for you. For specifically though, if you're finding yourself stuck, there are a couple of things that happens. One of them is, I think that this was something Oprah said, something about like suffering happens when we resist what's going on in front of us. So I think sometimes we get stuck because we are refusing, not intentionally, but unintentionally, unknowingly, unconsciously, refusing to accept what's happening. So one of my, favorite practices is continuous, practice of acceptance. And I know that's a very big word, and you might have to, for those of you that are listening and really want to practice acceptance, you obviously have to break it down for yourself, and you have to identify what it is that I'm refusing to accept. What am I resisting right now? I am resisting that the rest of the year I might still be in quarantine, or I might have to be social distance. Are you resisting what's ahead? Are you resisting what's been? You can't get over the fact that the summer is over and you had to cancel your trip. Are you resisting the fact that your kids are doing distance learning at home? And so you really have to ask yourself, what are you stuck and resisting? And obviously process the feelings around it,
Mm-hmm.
because there's probably disappointment and isolation and loneliness and loss in so many ways, and loss of memories we were hoping to make, loss of connections. I know people, for example, had these goals, right? Every September, when my kids go back to school, I'm going to, start a new hobby, or apply for this one job I've been postponing. Now you have to grieve the loss of that being postponed or delayed. So
Right.
obviously, I think with being stuck, there are some things that you have to process. And then one of my other favorite tips to share with people is, have you ever been in this point in your life before? Obviously, with quarantine, it's an obvious no. None of us have been in quarantine before. But I bet if I think hard enough, there has been a point in my life where I felt stuck before.
Mm-hmm.
And then ask yourself, like, how did I handle it? What did I do, or how long did it last for me to get unstuck? And do I want it to be that long this time too? And then, really rely on your personal history and your personal toolbox to help you get unstuck. And I love this kind of approach because it really helps people know that the answer is within them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
There has a point in your life you've been stuck before, some shape or form.
mm-hmm.
Even if you're stuck because you ran out of gas, you've been stuck before.
Right.
You've been stuck because you left the keys inside, and or you left the key somewhere, and you're standing outside of your house and you're stuck. You've been stuck, even in those very minor ways. You've been stuck before. And what did you do? You probably had a self-talk that said, all right, let's see how we can fix this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got unstuck and you made the calls or you knocked at your neighbor's door. But that was the self-empowering thought you had that said, all right, let's now find a solution. So pull that tool out of that toolbox and apply it here. And again, I think it could be very self-loving, self-empowering to look at our personal history and look at our personal challenging moments, ask ourselves how we overcome them, and then see if we can apply the same ideas today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. It's fantastic. Right. I mean, that the mantra, that is kind of how the mantra, yes, I can, was born, and which is my mantra. And that's why we have Yes, I Can Living. And it's all about saying strategic yeses and abundant nos. But when you're facing that fear, that doubt, that anxiety, and you're the uncertainty, and like, yes, I can do this. I can do this. Right. And finding that way. I love that. Thank you. So let me ask you this, back to business for a second. When you're looking at, where your business is now and how things are going, and when you started, is there something your current self would tell your newly entrepreneur self, something that you wish you knew when you started your business that you know now?
Wow, that's a great question. There's actually a lot, in hindsight being 2020.
Right, always, always.
And I'm gonna answer this very authentically. I think I would have put myself out there more.
Mm-hmm.
It
Okay.
really wasn't after since March, where March 15 here in Los Angeles, that we felt a very clear kind of quarantine lockdown, where obviously we all went online, and so we're all trying to connect with our communities through social media platforms, and we're doing live Facebook lives and Instagram lives, and I've seen how helpful it is for me to grow as a professional, and obviously how it nourishes the relationships I have. And I think what I wish my younger self, or my younger business self, would do is to put myself out there more, and not to let that fear of, oh, I'm gonna sound silly, or I'm gonna sound really uncomfortable, and I don't have anything to say, or it's been said before, and not let those self-doubts get in the way. I think the best advice, and the one I'm really trying to practice now, because how does the saying go? Better late than sorry. So it's never too late. It's never too late to go ahead and do the things, and no matter how uncomfortable they are. So
Right. Love it. Wonderful. Awesome. So I am sure there's some people listening who are like, I need to connect with her. So how can people find you? How can our listeners find you?
well, there's so many different ways they can actually find me. So I'm going to try not to overwhelm anybody. So I'll give the website, which is embracingyouTherapy.com. And for Instagram, they can find me by Dr. Menije. So it's dr.menije. And I do also have a YouTube channel if they wanted to watch any of my short tips on mental health and anxiety. And so they can also find me on Pinterest now.
Awesome. Okay. I love it. I love it. Fantastic. Well, I hope you all will connect with her. You've got isn't there a 5-day, there's something on your website, right? A 5-day challenge, or yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. So if you visit my website, it's actually on my homepage and a few other places around the website. It's a 5-day challenge to become from anxiety warrior to a warrior. So instead of worrying about anxiety, you will become the warrior that overcomes anxiety. It's a 5-day challenge. So for 5 days in a row, you will get tips on how to overcome anxiety.
Love that. Love that. I had signed up for that. I think y'all need to get over there and let's, be warriors for sure.
Yeah.
So the final question I ask all my guests is, what makes you a yes, I can woman?
I think it's my self-love, because in order to show myself love, I have to say yes to my dreams, yes to my strengths, and yes to the gift I have, and give myself permission to say yes.
I love that. I love it. Well, you were definitely a yes, I can woman. I'm so honored. Thank you so much for joining us today and having this conversation about, our mental health. Because I think it's, people don't understand that many of us are going through the same kinds of feelings and challenges, and knowing we're not alone, and then some tips on how to really work through it, to become aware and work through it. So thank you, Dr. Menije, for being with us today. I really appreciate it. And to all of those listening, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Stay tuned. We'll be back next week with another episode of Yes, I Can Living. Be sure to opt in at yesicanliving.com, where you'll get our weekly newsletter with links to our various podcasts and articles. And you'll be able to subscribe for our free first preview issue that'll be coming out just before the end of 2020. So until then, I hope you have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you soon. Here's to live in your yes. Bye-bye.